Hello, beautiful people, and hello to our wonderful audience out there, and welcome to the Lonely Hearts panel, Y'all West 2021. Okay, we're going to take questions at the end of this panel, so if you have them, please send them. And for the last 10 minutes, we will take audience questions. I have the great pleasure of hosting all of these lovely people you see before you. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves, and then we are going to get into it. So I'm just going to start the way I see you guys on my screen. So Elise, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am so excited to be here. I'm kind of freaking out a little bit with all of these huge authors. So my name is Elise Bryant. I am the debut author of Happily Ever Afters. I don't know, what do I say? I live in Southern California. I used to be a special ed teacher, and now I have the joy of writing for teenagers. And yeah, I'm just so excited to be here.
Yay! Okay, Monica.
Hi, everybody. I'm Monica Gomez-Hira. I am also freaking out, also super excited to be here. I am the debut author of Once Upon a Quinceañera, which just came out in March. And I live in Minneapolis. I used to work in publishing. I've worked at bookstores. And now I am writing full-time and raising my teenage daughter.
All right. Thank you, Monica. And Ray?
Hi, yes. I'm Ray Stoeve. My pronouns are they, them. Also echoing the excitement. And my book, Between Perfect and Real, comes out on Tuesday, the 27th. I live in Seattle, and I also contributed to Take the Mic, Fictional Stories of Everyday Resistance, which is out from Arthur A. Levine Books.
Awesome. And Leah?
Hey everybody, I'm Leah Johnson. I'm the author of You Should See Me in a Crown, which is tucked behind me, carefully placed, product placement, and the forthcoming which will be out on July 6th. That's pretty much what you need to know. But really, actually, the important part is that this is a striped shirt, okay? And it's getting washed out by my ring light. But I want you all to know that this was like a really great outfit and you're missing part of it, but that's okay.
We believe you, we do. I can almost see the stripes.
I can see the stripes, yep.
Okay, great.
And David.
I think you did that just so I would do the awkward lean into the camera to look at the stripes. It's a good look for me. I'm David Levithan. I've been writing queer YA since Boy Meets Boy in 2003, which on this panel makes me like biblical. Like I feel like I'm Methuselah here. And I have continued to write rom-coms, both solo with other people. Most recently, Mind the Gap, Dash and Lily, which is the third book in the Dash and Lily series, which is just on Netflix that I write with Rachel Cohn.
All right. And I am Nicola Yoon. I wrote a couple books before, Everything, and The Sun Is Also a Star. And I have a new one coming out in June, which seems like it's tomorrow, but isn't actually. And it's called Instructions for Dancing, and that is the cover. All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to ask a sort of serious question to begin with, and then we'll talk about love. So, it's been like the most ridiculous, stressful, kind of awful year. How are you writing through it? Well, how are you doing? And how are you writing through it? Has your process changed? If it has, how has it? Like, how are you coping? Elise, why don't you start?
Well, it's been a struggle. I have two little kids and they are home all the time now. And my husband is home all the time now. And so much of my process before was like, being alone and having a clear head to think. So it's been difficult. But honestly, I just feel like writing love stories, especially love stories about Black girls, has been just the greatest privilege right now because it's like a guaranteed spot of joy in my day. Like no matter how hard the day is, I always know that like I can go to my story where they're flirting and making fart jokes, and it's just it's such a joy to be able to have that. So that's how I've gotten through it. It's just like it's the best part of my day, probably.
Wow, that's really good. What about you, Ray?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year being a debut, like Elise I think you're the other debut on the panel. Yeah.
And Monica too. Leah. We've all of our except for David.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's it's like time has ceased to exist. But like I think it's been an interesting pace because things with BPAR were kind of like wrapping up at the beginning of the pandemic, and then there was a huge chunk in the middle where I had already drafted my second book before I even sold BPAR. And so I didn't, I kind of just didn't write through like most of the pandemic, and also found it like really difficult. Like I felt like my investment or like motivation wasn't there. So I just gave myself some time. I was like, all right, I'm wrapping up BPAR. I'm just gonna like focus on that. I'm just, my process has always been that I tend to like write in chunks and then take a big like chunk of rest, and then can come back to the work and like see what needs to be done. So I just let myself have that. And then about the New Year time, which was also when I got edits back for my second book, I just started getting back in the swing of things. And now I feel like it's back to being like something that feels exciting and like is a refuge for me, at least similar to what you said. So it's been an interesting year, and I've mostly just tried to like give myself some grace through it.
Right. And I love that you said that, because I do think that, especially if you're writing, there's a lot of guilt that can sometimes happen if you're not writing every day or not writing when you feel like you should be. And I've needed to do that, like sort of be like a little bit graceful with myself and just be like gentle. I think that we would advise other people to be gentle and take it easy, but we are a little bit hard on ourselves, right?
Yes.
What about you? How have you been doing?
Was that Leah?
Yeah, you,
okay.
Leah.
I was make sure I don't.
Yeah.
I will say that I am now on my second book that's coming out in a pandemic. And so I'm living the dream. You know what I mean? I am a pandemic author through and through. And so this is the only type of professional career I know really is one that exists through a screen. And so I've really unlucky, I guess, but also really fortunate to be able to write contemporary rom-coms or contemporary romance in this moment when like so much of what I'm writing feels like a fantasy, because we don't move through the same world that the kids in my books are moving through. And so being able to really like lose myself in that and channel a lot of like the things that I feel like I wish that I could still have in my everyday life in the work. I don't know, maybe my therapist will tell me that's not the healthiest thing to do, but it is certainly the thing that I have been using to like keep this train on the tracks for the past year.
Right. What about you, David? Has it been
Yeah,
hard?
I found myself, just writing the thing that brought me the most joy, honestly. Like, it was not something I planned, but I was like, I dived basically straight into this big gay middle grade that basically is the most me book I've ever written, which will come out next year. And like, but it was just that there were some really serious projects that I really wanted to dive in before the pandemic, but would involve a lot of research or a lot of just painful sort of reckoning in terms of the characters, in terms of the subject. And I think that I was like, you know what, you're taking on enough right now in your life. You should just write the one that really you will enjoy going to every time you get to go to it. And that is exactly what I did.
Right. That's good. What about you, Monica? Do you guys all hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do hear that. Our panel is haunted. It was hard for me at the beginning of the pandemic to concentrate. I think I was very focused on just kind of getting through day to day. Just sort of as the dominoes started to fall, things started to shut down. My daughter's school came home permanently. My husband stopped traveling. And like Elise, my process involved a lot of sort of wandering around my house and talking myself through all the different plot points. And then that was gone because suddenly I had people saying, "That doesn't sound really interesting, Mom," or whatever. And I was just like, well, you are my target audience, so that's a problem. So I was sort of stuck for a while. I decided to concentrate on my copy edits and everything for Quince when that came out, when that was sort of the process of that. And I think I also finally decided to work on something that makes me happy with all of the in-jokes that make me happy. It's sort of the same thing that pulled me through Quince. I started Quince right after or very close to the 2016 election. And I did it sort of as a rebellion against everything that was happening in the world. And so I feel a little bit like the second book that I'm drafting right now very quickly is sort of feeling the same way. And also, deadlines are a wonderful motivator, and your editor and your agent saying, it's time is a great way to break through any block. Highly recommend it.
The hardest thing for me has been time, just having my little girl home all day. Like, even though she's on Zoom school, it's like 45-minute classes, and then she comes to check in on mama, and I'm like,
yeah,
the same. Nothing's changed. Go away, child.
Nothing's changed.
I mean, really, honestly. All right, so let's talk about love. Why don't you tell me about your favorite romantic trope? And tell me why it's your favorite romantic trope. Who wants to start? I guess. Me.
Enemies to lovers. I will die on this hill. I love enemies to lovers. I love when characters either can't stand each other at the beginning, or one of them is very angry at the other for whatever reason, and the other one is kind of trying to break through those walls. I just love to see that journey. I feel like it's very satisfying and very earned at the end when they acknowledge their feelings for each other and have like the big grand gesture romantic moment. So that is my trope of choice. And it's very hard for me not to write every book with enemies to lovers. I'm trying to diversify, but I'm just like, no, why don't they hate each other? What is the problem here?
Oh my God, I love like good enemies to lovers, like all that witty banter, but like with barbed, like when they hate each other and then they realize, oh, we should be kissing instead of like that. It's the best. Leah, what about you? What's your favorite?
You know what? Honestly, enemies to lovers is God tier. So I do want to just acknowledge that I agree. But I think a really close second, or like neck and neck for me, is fake dating. I can't get it. Doesn't matter how many times I see it. I know how it's going to end. I know exactly when they're going to have to break up. But still, it's just so satisfying.
The whole time, I love being the audience is ahead of the characters, right? And so you're just waiting for it.
Yeah.
Rick, what about you?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Cool. Probably friends to lovers. I do love enemies to lovers, but also friends to lovers. Being demisexual is just like really hits the spot for me. And then slow burn too, like the slower the better. And so for me, like I think of like red, white, and royal blue, the like slowest possible burn.
Right. Can that book be any better? Why is that book so good? I have read it 3 times, like literally 3 times, and going, I cannot figure out why this is genius.
It's like candy. That book is candy. It's so much fun. It's delicious.
Yeah. It's like healthy candy.
Yes. Gourmet candy.
Yes.
Like, you want to be a better writer. You're just like, oh, can I write like this, please? Thank you. Elise, what about you?
I mean, I love a good fake dating too. I could read that any day. But I think for me too, just like Ray, slow burn. I want it to go as slow as possible. So like, when they like their fingers brush together, it just like means everything. And you don't get that final kiss to like the last chapter, which I mean, if you read my book, I'm very into slow burn. I just like, I want to be like, please, 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 the kiss. Yeah, the best.
And David.
I mean, I like discovering new tropes. I just read Lone Lee's book for Love Story, and like I was amazed because it wasn't opposites attracting. It was actually attraction by finding people who have a lot in common with you. And it made me realize how I don't read that story very often about 2 people who have a lot of common falling in love. And I mean, obviously there's rivalry and there are obstacles in the way. But I loved their bond was that both of them individually had gone through so many of the same things without having anyone to talk to about it. And then when they found each other, it was pretty amazing. So I don't know that I've ever written that, but reading that, I was like, wow, I really love how that played out because it was the opposite of what I was expecting.
Wow, very cool. Very cool. Did you guys hear that again?
Yes.
Well, I'm not hearing it, so I'm fascinated to hear what this ghost is.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to move on and pretend there's not a ghost in our little session here. All right. So, how do you guys make love feel real on the page? Like, how do you convince the readers that your characters are falling in love? I mean, this is very difficult, as we all
I'm
know.
so glad you said on the page. I really thought you were about to ask us, how do you make love feel real? And I was like, wait, what?
Yes.
So on the page, that's good. On the page is great.
Different panel, David. All right, Leah, do you want to start that one?
I really do, and I'm so glad you called on me first, because the answer is love sucks sometimes, and that is the thing that makes it real to me, is like being very afraid of being seen because being perceived is mortifying, and like awkward first kisses. Like, I have never had a first kiss with somebody that was like, wow, oh my God, we should be in a, like, I don't know, Nancy Meyers movie. Like, no, it's always, I've tripped into you and my lips smacked into your mouth. Like, it's just, to me, love is like awkward and strange and sometimes really uncomfortable, but always magnificent and like huge and impossible feeling. And so, like, I think finding some balance between like, man, this is really terrifying, and whoa, this is incredible, is like the sweet spot for making it feel as real to like what love has felt like to me, you know.
Yeah. It's funny that you said like you've never had the first kiss that's been like magical. And, you know, I think about my husband, and our first kiss was terrible. It was like drunk in water. It was not. I'm surprised we kissed again.
Right. And this is me, because I am a deeply awkward person. So I'm the reason why all my kisses are awkward. Like, all my first kisses are awkward, and then they just get better. But like, that's on me. I bring hot messiness into every interaction.
Well, I blame David for our terrible first kiss, so. All right, Monica, how about you? How do you make your characters feel real? How do you make the love between them feel real?
I think it's a balance between acceptance and resistance for me, because that is what love feels like for me. There's always a period where I don't believe that it's happening, or I'm arguing with myself, or I am telling myself that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, or that I'm not feeling what I'm feeling. And so there's a lot of, no, this can't possibly be. I am totally misinterpreting this moment, and I will skulk away in shame. And so that's something that I like to put in there. And also, I think just unexpected reactions to things. You mentioned sort of the awkward first kisses, like kisses that aren't sort of movie ready, laughter at unexpected moments. I mean, my characters have a passionate moment that sort of dissolves into laughter because they can't quite realize how it's happening or what is happening. And that is a moment that felt real to me as a writer, and that I hope that feels real to the reader. So yeah, awkwardness and resistance, I guess, is love for me. I don't know what that says about my relationship, but yeah, that's it.
One of the best things I ever read about sort of writing romance was the audience has to fall in love with the characters too. You know, so there has to be something appealing about them. I think it was in relation to When Harry Met Sally, that old movie. You know, you do fall in love a little bit with both Harry and Sally. And for me, it's I really like it when the characters fall in love with themselves. You know, they start to see what's like worthy in them. And I love when they talk to each other and give each other different ideas about the world. That's my favorite. Like, if I could write 500 pages of dialogue and people would buy it, I would do that. Just people talking.
We would.
I think we would, yeah.
Just like, no, please put other words in here besides dialogue. What about you, Ray?
Yeah, what makes a romance feel real? I think for me, like, especially like writing for teens, I spent a lot of time like thinking about Dean and Zoe's relationship in terms of like how I felt, you know, when I had a crush in high school. and like that feeling of like you're always looking for that person, and then like you see their face and you get that little like like jolt, like you're like afraid but also like really like excited, you know, like you get that rush. And then for me, like then also thinking about what's in play in adult relationships that maybe you aren't as aware of as a teen. I don't know, teens are different now, but then like what are the secret like fears in love that people have? Like Dean, you know, that whole thing, Leah, about being seen, like Dean really wants Zoe to see him but doesn't trust, or like is afraid that she won't. And then Zoe has her own baggage that she's bringing to the relationship that she really wants Dean to like fix for her. And so like those are the things that feel real to me too, is like what are people's like secret fears when they're in love that they demonstrate in, you know, overt and like subtle ways too, of like not saying the thing when they should have said the thing. That's what feels real to me.
Not saying the thing, that's such a big part of it, right? And like the thing that is in your head versus what actually comes out of your mouth. Yeah. Elise, what about you?
Well, I mean, I agree. Like having the character fall in love with themselves in the story is so important too. Like that's a huge part of Happily Ever Afters and my next book. But I think I'm gonna get a little mushy for a second. I met my husband. Okay. I met my husband when I was 19, and we've been married for almost 10 years now. And so I don't know, he makes writing love stories so easy. I think there's a part of him in each of the boys in my stories, and the relationships that the girls in my stories build. And so I have like this like unlimited inspiration to take from whenever I'm trying to see like what would they do in this situation, or what would be happening here. So yeah.
Love is the best. The best.
I love that.
And David.
You guys do not belong on a Lonely Hearts panel. I'm sorry. I love my husband so much stuff. Come on. I'm not hearing Lonely Hearts here at all. I mean, anyway, but I mean, which strangely is going to segue into my answer, which is actually something that has evolved over time as I've been writing, which is that I've learned not to approach any of the relationships in my books by saying they have to end up together in the end. That's the only possible happy ending. That some people, and certainly I've discovered this in my life, some people you fall in love with and you're much better off as friends. And there are reasons for that. And there are also, you can get a lot from a relationship, even if it doesn't last, because it does teach you a lot about you and what you need in a relationship and what you want to give in a relationship. So I do think that the honesty that I put into my characters is also by being very honest with myself as I'm writing it, saying all of the options are possible. And again, some of my characters do end up together, but if they don't, it doesn't make for a non-hopeful or a sad ending, that you can have definitely happy endings in life and in books if you find friendship or find other ways of being together, or as we've said, just find out things about yourself. So that I think helps.
Yes.
I love that. I love how open you are with the writing. I mean, I tend to outline, so I know a little bit where I'm going, but you approach it. You're very brave, David Levithan. Okay, so switching gears just a little bit. Is there a book that saved your life growing up? A book that you wish you could make everyone in the world read and really meant something to you? I'll start. Mine, the book I would give everyone is The Little Prince, because that made me into a writer. So I feel like that's the book I first felt really seen in. And I don't mean like physically, I mean spiritually seen in, right? So this person that goes on an adventure and just learns things from the world, and learns about love and all the big things that you're willing to do, the risks you're willing to take for love. I love that book so intensely. And it's one of those books that changes every time you read it. So when I read it when I was a little kid, it's so different than when I read it right now. And I read it every few years or so. I hope that my writing can be like that, you know, that when you read it, you get something different every time. But I love that book. Anyone want to jump in? I don't want to put you on the spot because it's one of those big hard questions, but
I can jump in. I mean, this is more for me as a writer, I mean, I've often cited this before, but Francesca Leah Block's Weetzie Bat. I mean, and because the characters of Duck and Dirk were the first gay couple madly in love with each other that I read in a book. And the musicality of her writing as well, just that there is a direct, concrete line between that book and Boy Meets Boy. And it was by showing me that you could write about a relationship like mine in a way that was real, but also fantastical. And that changed my life and changed my writing life easily. And I do wish everybody would read it.
What about you,
I
Monica?
love those books in high school. Oh, sorry.
I mean, those
great. Those books were everything to me in high school.
Yeah, they were amazing. Oh my gosh. They were the first books that really made me think that anything in writing was possible in terms of imagination and magical realism and everything, which actually segues into my choice, which is Anne of Green Gables. That whole series, I think, really sort of made me value myself and my thought process for the first time. I was a really imaginative kid. I used to love to wander off by myself and make up stories and talk to myself and have very elaborate sort of fantasy games. And everybody in my family thought I was a little bit weird. I mean, I was that kid who brought a book to a party and like would go into a corner and read the book. And so in my very extroverted family, this was like, why aren't you out there dancing and being charming? And I was just like, I don't know how to do that. And then when I read Anne of Green Gables, and she was constantly building these fairy worlds for herself and sort of externalizing it, made me think, she's wonderful, I love her, therefore there must be a part of me that's also wonderful and that I can love as well, even if it's not valued by the rest of society. So yep, Anne of Green Gables.
I love that. Okay, Leah, how about you?
You know what? Sometimes I feel like when people ask me about books I read as a kid, like I just emerged as a reader at like 21 and no books existed before then. So like I have a really hard time bring it. But I will say the first book that left like a huge impression on me was Stargirl. It was the first time I'd ever cried while reading a book. And it's just like this, you know, strange little magical little like weirdo girl who like brings all this lightness to this community. And I don't know. I just remember like sobbing and like at the lunch table in like the 3rd grade or something when I was reading that book. So I'd say Stargirl. Okay.
Ray?
Yeah, I feel similarly to you, Leah, where I was like, wait, I can't remember anything I've ever read. I feel like as a, you know, teen or preteen, there were definitely books that I loved and series that I loved that I like felt I had a refuge in. I don't know that any of them were like a singular mark on my life. And the first book for me that comes to mind, it was when I was a little older, like 19, and I read Stone Butch Blues for the first time. And that book for me, like both Leslie's writing style, learning about who they were as a person, and just feeling for the first time like I had a sense of like having a place in queer community in terms of like throughout time, and also like all the different ways the main character Jess navigates gender and sexuality, I feel like gave me a pathway to understanding that like I could change throughout my life and that there wasn't one true me. And like just everything about that book was so formative, I think, to like my writing and me as a person. So that would be my book.
Okay, and Elise.
Yeah, there were a lot of love stories that were very important to me growing up, and Stargirl was huge to me too. I taught that in my freshman English class for many years because I just love that book so much. But okay, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I read Everything when I was a high school English teacher, and that book is, you know, directly responsible for me deciding to write again. I wrote so much in high school, but I stopped for many years. But reading that book, it really made me realize like there could be space for me in this industry, that maybe people would want to read the love stories that I wanted to write with Black girls like me. So It's your
You are
book.
not
You're responsible.
moderator cry. I feel like this is a rule.
Well, I don't want to cry either, but I'm, like I said, I'm freaking out being here because I love you so much.
Aw.
Very, very sweet. But I mean, I will say that, it's so nice to be on this panel, like with all of you guys, because I mean, in so many ways, we're, blazing a trail, and making space for marginalized folks. And, when I started, it was different, and it's gotten so much better. And it makes, I have a 9-year-old, and I don't know, like the fact that she can pick up each of your books at some point and read them. She tries to read them now, and I'm just like, no, maybe wait a little bit. But it's so wonderful. I mean, just as a mom, it's like just so wonderful to see. We are at 11:30, you guys, so I am switching to the audience questions.
Wow.
And I know these things go fast.
That went fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so just give me a second here as I read through some of these to make sure they're appropriate. Let's see. Thoughts on writing sequels or books that start after the happily ever after. So I get the question about sequels all the time. Like, will you write a sequel to Everything, Everything? No, I never will write a sequel. And the thing I always say is that if I do it, I have to break them up. They've been through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You'll have to call it Nothing, Nothing.
Not doing it, David. I am not doing it.
Good.
Allie and Maddie, they're happy. I'm happy. They're fine. What about anyone else? Any sequels out there?
Well, I get this question a lot because of the cliffhanger at the end of Happily Ever Afters. But yeah, I think the same thing. Like, I'd have to break them up, and I don't ever want to break them up. And I also want people to just, kind of imagine what happens with them. But I've written a companion novel that comes out in January called One True Loves, and it follows Tessa's friend Lenore and her own love story, and I get to you get to put little snippets of what's happening with Tessa and Sam. So, or I guess saying Sam is kind of a spoiler, but you get to see little bits of what happens with them, and that's all I want to do because I don't want them to be sad.
Anybody else? Any sequel possibilities? I mean, David, you haven't actually done this.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because if you had asked me the question after I'd written the first books, I would have been like, no, I'm never writing a sequel. And then, of course, the characters stay with you, or you realize that there is something more you want to say with the characters, and then suddenly you're writing a sequel, or for Dash and Lily, a third book. And honestly, with Dash and Lily, I think Rachel and I, it's really interesting because basically we're checking in with these characters 1 year later every year, and that does allow you to do something that you can't really necessarily do in a single novel, to take 700, 800 pages to really explore people over time and how a relationship changes over time. And so I feel we're doing in our own way, we're doing sort of a before sunrise thing where it's like, okay, let's keep checking in and see how the relationship evolves, because it certainly has gone from being the meet cute of the first book to being the very complicated, we've been going out for 2 years in the third book. And I think we're really enjoying doing that.
Yeah. One thing that I think that I would do is write a sequel to The Sun Is Also a Star. Like, I might do that. I think that is going to happen.
Please.
Oh, awesome. Yay.
That would be amazing.
Guys. Let me say, David, can you repeat your book recommendation? Because I guess a bunch of audience members did not hear you properly.
Oh, Weetzie Bat. I mean, they probably didn't understand what the hell I said. So Weetzie, and then Bat, B-A-T, by Francesca Leah Block.
Okay, thank you. How important is representation to you? Do you start with characters first? Do you start with the plot first? I'm going to choose Ray.
Me. I think, oh man, characters or plot first. I feel like it's very tied together for me. And like the character of Dean, like came to me like 10 years ago when I was first starting to question my gender. And I like thought of like, you know, this kid and what if he gets to be cast as like the main gender affirming role for him in the school play. And so I think like the character of Dean, the representation, and the plot were all very tied together for me. And I think that thread has continued through in my second book, and then also, you know, in the other ideas that I have percolating for future books. Yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in on this one? Monica?
What was the first part of the question?
Oh, the first part was how important is representation? I'm not sure why these questions are smashed together, but they are. So how important is representation, and do you start with plot or character first? So we can just treat them as two different questions.
Representation to me is very important because I grew up obviously reading a ton of romance, young adult and adult, and it was difficult at that time to find stories with characters that looked like me, sounded like me, sort of reflected the reality of me and my family and the people around me. And so I really wanted to tell those stories and see people who looked like that and acted like that and sounded like that, especially sounded like that, because my books have a mix of Spanish and English throughout. My book, I talk about pluralization, but the second book is coming. And so that was very important to me. And as far as character versus plot, I agree with Ray, it's very intertwined, but character is, without the characters and their wounds and their conflicts and their backstories, there is no plot. I am a big lover of creating backstories. I think in a former life, I was like a Dungeon and Dragon person or something, because I love creating these very elaborate, 99% of it doesn't even hit the page, but like I need to know it in my head in order to write the books. So character, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else want to take this one on? Or should I try to get we have 3 minutes left. We could try to get more questions in. Let's see.
Let's do speed round.
Yeah.
Speed round. All right. So real quick, if you could write a book with any other author, who would it be? Elise.
I don't know. This is pressure. Leah. I would write a book with Leah because she's wonderful.
I would write a book with, oh my gosh. Actually, I would write a book with Elise. I think we would have fun together.
Right.
I love this.
Mutual admiration society here. Okay, yes. Ray, you write a book with?
I can't think of anybody because of being on the spot, but I will say that I have signed a collaborator agreement with someone. We haven't written anything yet, so I'm not going to say anything, but it's happening.
Yeah, what about you?
I'm gonna be honest, this is like very high pressure question for me because there's like 25 different people who I've already started the book with them. I would say I really, really want to write a book with my friend Justin A. Reynolds. Like I think he's incredible and I love his story so much. So I'm trying to like elbow him into doing something with me. And also at least because I'm obsessed with her and I love her so much.
Well, David Levithan, you have done this many times.
I would never write with another person. Are you crazy? It's career suicide. Besides potentially people in this room, many whom I would write with, I'd write with anybody who I like. Leah Bryant is always like my answer. And like, I really thought I thought we were going to do it. And then she signs up these like huge monumental series to write and then doesn't have time, but eventually I will find a place in her calendar.
All right, my answer is David, because he's the best thing on earth and I love his writing. And also we are already doing it and it's the most fun for real.
Yay. Awesome.
You know,
oh my gosh.
Love with your best friend is the best thing, and being in love with like one that you think can really write is also the best thing. So we're every time, like we're not even fighting at all, which is ridiculous. All right, I think I don't know if we can fit one in. That is because we only have 1 minute to go. What's your next project? What do you want to talk about for the people?
July 6, 2021, Rise of the Sun comes out. You all should definitely pre-order it. I think it's really great.
It is really great. I have read it. You should pre-order it.
Thank you.
It is really
Anyone?
great.
I'm going to say this one comes out real soon. 5 weeks, June 1st. Instructions for dancing. It's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's too much. It's almost too good.
I'm working on my second book right now under contract, and that should be out around this time next year. And it's also going to feature queer and trans teens struggling with big life questions. So,
Yay!
Yay.
Have fun on debut day for you, Ray. That's just on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
Tuesday.
I mean, I know it's a challenging time, but I hope your day is fantastic.
thank you.
Elise, what do you want to talk about
Yes.
for the people?
My next book comes out January. I saw on Goodreads and Amazon it's January 4th, so I'm going to say that day. It is the companion novel to Happily Ever Afters. It's called One True Loves. It follows Lenore as she goes on a Mediterranean cruise after she graduates from high school and falls in love with a boy named Alex. I just sent it to Nicola, so she's going to read it. Hopefully she likes it. Yeah.
Monica?
My second book, I'm still in the process of writing it, so no due date yet, or rather my draft is due, but no pub date yet. But it's going to feature some of the same characters as Quince, and it's set in the same world, so you will see Carmen Amado again in smaller roles, but they'll be there.
Awesome. And Mr. Levithan?
Amazingly, so I have a collaboration that is coming out on my birthday, we think, on September 7th, but it hasn't been announced yet. So I can't say who it's with or what it's about or even its title. I will say it is somebody who I spent a significant amount of time hanging out with at YALLWEST when it was in person. So that's the only clue I can give. But yeah. Yeah, I was saying Nikki probably can figure it out. Anyway, it's very exciting. Hopefully there will be an announcement in the next few weeks because September's going to be soon. It really is.
Yeah.
Publishing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time. I'm not sure how we're supposed to end the call. We're still
By
on
just
air.
encouraging everyone to buy books.
And it's Independent Bookstore Day, right?
Indie Bookstore
Yes,
Day.
it's Independent Bookstore Day. So
That's right. Go out and support. It's been such a long year for everyone, but especially for independent bookstores. And if we want them to be around next year, we have to support them now. So,
and if you buy from YALLWEST, you are supporting Blue Bicycle Books, which is an independent bookstore. So what a great way to spend Independent Bookstore Day than buying our books and other people's books through YALLWEST from Blue Bicycle.
Nice.
Did I do that good?
They have signed book plates too, right? We all
That's right.
Yep, you all signed.
Okay, guys. Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed the panel. Bye.
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.